Redditors who have tried to hide on your cruise when it ended so that you could stay on the ship for the next round. How did that go? Removed. I don't know if this counts, but my dad got locked in a toilet cubicle on a ferry to France, and it took several people to find him. Monsieur, the toilet was right out of the way and you couldn't hear him yelling even right outside in the corridor because the doors were so massive. I guess he could have gone immediately back to England. Could have become a ship toilet hermit. I'm sure something similar has happened many times on the ferry between Helsinki and Tallinn. The ferry company even offers a 6-hour mini cruise where you board the ship in Helsinki, travel to Tallinn, and then stay on board for the return journey to Helsinki. We went on one of those for our company Christmas party a couple of years ago. When the ship arrived in Tallinn, the personnel on the ship didn't check in any way to make sure that people who stayed on the ship were supposed to be there. A drunk passenger could very easily forget to get off the ship and end up going along for the ride back to Helsinki. I worked for Carnival. We will find you. We know you're in the ship, and we all want you to get off so I can take a short nap before I have to do it all over again in a few hours. Amen to this. I worked for a small cruise ship company, less than 100 packs, and I would die a little inside every time people weren't packed the morning of departure and would slow everything down. Did they somehow forget that they needed to get off the boat that morning? Do those big ships do same-day turns, i.e. debarkation and embarkation the same day? My company did that, and apparently it's not the norm, at least in small cruise ships. Most of the other companies seem to have at least 24 hours between trips. Very specific target audience. There was an episode of This American Life, I think, where a woman did this. But back in the day, like the 60s or early 70s, there were seating charts or something in the dining room so she couldn't sneak in to eat. And things that she assumed would be open most of night, like bars, weren't. She lived on a lot of bar garnishes and had to pretend she was drunk who kept passing out in the lounge. It was a lot less fun than she thought it would be, with very little sleep and cleaning herself up in public bathrooms while worrying she would be caught doing so at any time. She had to sneak back into her own country because she hadn't brought a passport. I read that link, and while it was interesting, there were also a few occasions where she came close to being possibly assaulted, because one of her methods for fitting in involved being flirty with the single men on board, and more than once she had to extract herself from an overly touchy dude. And once she also woke up to a crew member with his hands down her top. Which makes you think, what happens to you if you bump into a real predator? You could go missing and no one would know where you were because you weren't really there. Late to the party, but I can chime in and further add proof if needed. I worked for Carnival for 5 years, specifically in debarkation. Additionally, I worked for Disney Cruise Line and Princess Cruise Line. Here's what happens. We give you a card upon check-in, and that card is scanned the minute you step on board. Additionally, it is scanned when you leave the ship for either complete debarkation or excursions. At the end of your cruise, debarkation starts around 7 o'clock am. Come 10 a.m. we receive a list of people who have not yet had their card scanned. It's impossible to get off the boat without getting your card scanned, unless you jump into the water. Haha. Then a manhunt begins to get you guys off the ship so we can put a new 2200-2600 people on it. We do not start boarding new passengers until every card from the previous voyage has been scanned. In my experience, nobody ever waits and tries to hide. If you do take a cruise, book a flight that's a little bit later in the morning and go with the latest checkout time you can. So many people aim for debarking around 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock am. Literally over 1,700 people will be waiting in lines that'll take well over an hour to get out of. Instead of waiting in line for the hour, stay on board and eat some breakfast. Take some last-minute photos. And then when your time comes, just leave. Go through customs, and be on your merry way. I am the one-stop Redditor for all cruising tips. Haha. Edit. I am starting my commute to work, but I'll be sure to answer all questions when I get there. Edit 2. Alright, I'm back. Time to answer these questions. Edit 3. I'll still answer questions if you PM me. Also, thanks for all of the kind words and gold and silver. It's been a fun thread. Not me, but a couple decided to hide to try get another week out of their holiday. This was while we were halfway through our holiday, so we heard it all. Dozens of announcements calling for them or anyone who's seen them were made throughout the day. Their rooms were searched and everything they owned in that room was seized. Apparently, the ship left port late by about 90 minutes. But they were eventually found and escorted off the ship when the crew decided to check the identity of every passenger on board. I found some crew clothing in the laundry and put it on. The crew was changing out at the last stop so nobody would recognize my new face. In the 2 days between the ending of one round and the start of the next leg, I found myself enjoying the nods from other crew members and a level of respect I wasn't used to having. Dressed as a normal passenger, I decided that I would chat up some of the bar staff and see if I'd have any luck getting free drinks. After a few beers, this new bartender came on. An old British guy, looked like he'd seen some stuff. He had a nickname for everyone. Governor, amigo, pal, comrade. I guess he'd really traveled a lot. He kept serving me drinks with a sly wink, like from one old sea dog to another. It came time to settle my bill, as the ship was prepping for departure, and when I went to give him money, sure enough, he told me I didn't have to pay. No sir, he said, this one's on me. Clappin', no trouble at all. Good luck getting us out of dock. And he pointed over my shoulder with his chin. I turned around and the rest of the bridge crew was there with a security detail. A little different. I was going through a really hard bout with depression in 2012 and really had nothing going on in life besides an overnight job at a gym. This year my parents decided to do a family cruise in March as our Christmas present. I was actually planning on saying goodbye to my family at the end of the trip and just getting off at the last island and not getting back on. Then I found out the cruise company would alert local authorities that I didn't get back on. I wanted to just island skip for a while instead of backpacking through Europe to do some thinking and adventuring. I didn't want to end up in some shitty Caribbean jail. Used to be in the USCG. We had this happen a few times in Miami. They were all escorted off the ship. Typically the police handled the situation, but if a stowaway was discovered while still in the 3 to 12 mile range, we would render assistance once they were apprehended by the onboard law enforcement. While I won't rule it out as an impossibility nowadays, it would be extremely difficult. First, you're scanned on and off the ship, so they'd know you never got off. So now you're hiding on the ship. WTF are you going to do? You won't be able to get into or back into your room as soon as you won't be able to eat or drink on some of the cruises, since you'll need a valid keycard or wristband. You'll be carrying all your stuff around, since you'll have nowhere to store it. You might make it to the first port without being caught, but then you'd probably want off, and when you get scanned off you're busted. I'd say it's 99.9% likely you spend your stowaway cruise in the ship's jail cell until you get back to home port. I don't know if this counts, but on the last night of a cruise, my friends and I got really drunk. Well, I don't know how the hell, but I ended up somewhere passengers should and TB in a goddamn supply closet, I believe. The ship had docked and there was a 2-hour search for me. Still drunk, I couldn't find a way to get out of the room where the supply closet was, but the door was locked. The crew thought I was trying to sneak another ride, but after reviewing the cameras they clearly could tell I was nowhere near sober. So they let me go on my way with a good laugh. To this day I still don't remember making my way down there. An ex-GF of mine was onboard cruise photographer. I remember asking her something similar before, and she told me they swipe on and swipe off everyone, on every stop, at every time. She did say that she'd known people to try and stow away But basically it turns into a massive, fucking Easter egg hunt to find the person. The liner she was on always awarded the staff member that found the person with some sort of bonus. But she never told me what it was. I remember her saying that someone caused a ship to be something like 6 hours late to leave, because they'd done such a good job at hiding. Eventually they were found or gave themselves up and were arrested by port authorities.